in the history of the Big Blue. It is a beautiful day to get out and enjoy some Ninja A-League football. Winter hasn't hit quite yet. Still beautiful autumn weather. And Sydney FC making the most of a chance to see their team. Of course, they're still under an interim coach at the moment. Mackenzie Hawkesby seems to have a great rapport with her mascot there. And after a competitive but ultimately unsuccessful showing against the Wellington Phoenix 8 days ago in a 3-1 defeat, Sydney FC would love nothing more than to get something out of today's game. Even a draw would be enough to move them out of last place and a step closer to avoiding the first wooden spoon in the club's A-League women's history. And of course, the rivalry between these two tends to throw out wherever they are on the table. And both teams will be well aware of that. It was a stalemate when they met at the home of the Matildas earlier in the season. You can see there Melbourne Victory's ladder position and recent form does have them favoured by the Statos. But Sydney FC will be hoping that they can land a major blow in the Big Blue today as they welcome the Victory back to Leichhardt Oval. Let's take a look at the lineups, and with Amelia Casa, Ruby Sullivan and Sky Halmerick away on young Matildas duty, Sydney FC brings back Riley Tanner and Willa Pearson from suspension, and new signing Charlotte McLean, who returns to Sydney FC. Kaylee Talon-Henniker moves to fill the bench. Melbourne Victory, by contrast, make just the one change, but it's a big one. Top scorer Kennedy White has been goalless in 4 games and moved to the substitutes bench, meaning Ella O'Grady comes in to Jeff Hopkins' starting 11. So that is how the lineups look. James Slaveski is the interim coach of Sydney FC, but speculation continues to mount that the job may already be his, should he want it, for next season. Just a couple of sprints for Sydney FC as the final part of their preparation. Madison Asen and Jodie Ukekel leading the charge. Here's Jeff Hopkins. Since Victory last played, the Brisbane Roar have picked up 6 points and totally changed the finals picture. Melbourne Victory appeared to be doing just enough to squeak into the top 6. Now they have a battle on their hands, and it is consecutive away games to finish the season, given they are off to Perth in the very last round. Rihanna Policina is leading the team talk here. Today's central referee giving the high five there is Isabella Mosson. Her assistants are Maggie Price and Anastasia Philokaritis, and the fourth official is Beck Mackey. So Sydney FC will face the Central Coast Mariners in the final round, and they know that they need something in order to avoid the dreaded wooden spoon. There is pride on the line, and the Cove and Sydney FC's home support will be hoping that today they can break through. Charlotte McLean and Mackenzie Hawkesby, quick embrace as McLean. Career game number 74 will be the first back in the Ninja A-League after time in the United States, both at the North Carolina Courage and also on loan at the Tampa Bay Sun. But game time was a rarity for McLean. She'll be keen to play a big role in these last 2 games. Ella O'Grady, just her second start. And you can see from 41 career matches, she has normally been a super sub, but she gets an opportunity to prove herself today.
Sydney FC, members and fans, let's cheer on our girls in blue.
Underway at Leichhardt Oval, and Melbourne Victory take kickoff, attacking the left of your screens in their white away kits today. Sydney FC in their customary home sky blue, and a player who played 152 times for the Sky Blues and also for the Matildas, Teresa Polias, joins me in commentary today. Teresa, great to see you.
Thank you, Teo, for the warm welcome, and what a day for it. Another big blue, both teams in very different situations.
as far as Sydney FC, eliminated from finals. Rare territory for them. They're going to miss for the second season in a row, but you know the Big Blue, you know what this rivalry means. Historically, it used to probably mean a bit more to Melbourne Victory, but today it's Sydney FC who gets a chance to play spoiler in the Victory Zone finals ambitions.
Yeah, we're used to seeing either team battling for a minor premiership at this point in the season, but that aside, yes, they've got two different situations happening. The history and the rivalry between the two is more than enough motivation for today.
As we see Willa Pearson again recast in a more of a right wing-back role under the interim coach James Slaveski after starting the season as a centre-back. Still only 15 years of age. Holder of both the youngest player and youngest goal scorer records set this season in the Ninja A-League. And good to see her back from suspension. Youngest player to get suspended, T, with the 5 yellow cards as well.
Well, she's been played in almost every position. Good to see her so versatile at such a young age. Such an important player for Sydney FC.
See the shadows stretching across the pitch. 5 p.m. local kickoff at Leichhardt Oval for those of you watching interstate or overseas. In the setting sun, it'll be a golden hour game, this one. As Claudia Bunge, the New Zealand international, goes back to Courtney Newbon. Newbon waiting for Riley Tanner to approach. A shallow clearance, making Chelsea Bliss at work, and the captain, Kayla Morrison, trying to calm things down. As that runs long, it gives us a chance to go down to ground level and say good afternoon to Narlene Masto. Narlene, hello.
Hello, Teo. Good to be here, team. And I can tell you right off the bat, there's a real good energy here at Leichhardt Oval. Now, the club is telling me will be one of the best selling matches all season. Around 2,000 fans expected to roll in. Now, every time I've spoken to the Sydney players, they've spoken about how much they enjoy playing at Leichhardt. The intimate atmosphere feels like the fans are right there beside them. And it seems fitting that it's also Members Appreciation Day. Close to 100 club members have taken part in activations, and they'll be hoping to see their side seal a massive Big Blue win tonight.
Thank you, Narlene. Well, it's not just the Sydney FC fans. They've got Newcastle and Perth with a vested interest in this one too. In fact, I imagine that most fan bases around the league would love Sydney FC to get something out of today, bar one, and that's Wanderers, who are hoping to avoid the dreaded wooden spoon down at the bottom of the ladder.
Spot on there, Teo. Plenty happening in around the final space. Teams watching on.
Here is a former Sydney FC player, Rachel Lowe, going back to Bunge again. Courtney Newbon, confident enough to roam out to midfield already from the penalty area. And here's Lowe. Laura Pickett now. Bunge. Striking a long pass. Lowe volleying towards O'Grady. Cleared by Madison Asen. Now a midfield duel. Amber Luchtmeyer up for the header. Through comes a bit of a charge from Charlotte McLean, but not able to advance onto the ball. Newbon clears, and it's going to bounce and run away from Abby Lemon, who's starting at left back today for Sydney FC. Newbon, 6 clean sheets this season. She had 11 last campaign. And here is Charlotte McLean. Throwing in down the line, headed by Holly Furphy. Low. Blissett. And out in front, a little bit too far, of Sophia Sakalis, and it is going to roll out for a goal kick. What are the things taking your interest, either player-wise or tactics-wise today, Teresa? Who did you have in your thoughts as you came to the ground this afternoon?
Well, there's players that I've played with on both teams, but makes it all the more interesting when players cross over to another club and come up against each other. Bit of a chaotic start at the moment. Either team trying to find their range on what's a beautiful smooth pitch out there today.
Here's Morrison, Battle of Americans, as she looks up at Jodie Ukeckel. And the ball is deflected away. Ukeckel still looking for that first Ninja A-League goal. Game number 14 today in the competition for the American, who hasn't been a regular starter. And that lack of a breakthrough goal has certainly been a factor in that. Ball down the right. Here goes Policina taking on Claire Corbett. And a back pass towards Heather Hinz. Hinz with the first time clearance. Luchtmeyer. Keckle against Blissett. Now through comes Mackenzie Hawkesby. Willa Pearson on the move. Pearson reconnects with Hawkesby, and Hawkesby using her speed, but Kayla Morrison back in. Good closing speed from Morrison. Hawkesby seemingly happy to leave the throw into Tori Tumeth, who might have a long throw routine here. And with players shielding their eyes from the sun as they look west, a little bit tricky to defend. Here's Keckle. Hawkesby, first time ball. And an attempted volley from Tanner, sliced away from the target and cleared by Blissett.
A great delivery in from Mackenzie Hawkesby in the danger area there, and Pickett does enough on Tanner.
Sydney hugging the line, Tumeth, and fouls Chelsea Blissett. Blissett's only 2 career goals have come against Sydney FC, so she's got happy memories of playing against the Sky Blues. Here's Pickett. Victory's right back on the opposite side of the pitch. O'Grady hustling to try and make that pass connect, but Aysen is there first. And now Tanner, Amber Luchtmeyer, knocked the ball back, but couldn't find a teammate. Sakalis committed to the slide challenge in midfield. And Sydney will reset. Madison Aysen, who didn't get her Philippines passport approved in time to qualify for the AFC Women's Asian Cup, but with the Philippines qualifying for the World Cup, will perhaps now have her sights set on getting to Brazil in a bit over a year's time. And so her performances at centre-back for Sydney FC will still be incredibly relevant to a World Cup-bound team. Here's Blissett. Ella O'Grady trying to use her speed, but the ball won't run on for her here. Now Rachel Lowe. Pickett advancing.
You can see how organised that Sydney FC block is. Victory trying to disorganise and pull players out of position to penetrate through.
Taylor Ray with the pass. And offside is up here against Ella O'Grady. She's scored 4 career goals. Just the one this season, though. That came back in December against the Central Coast Mariners. Still only 19 years of age, though.
So young, and she's earned herself a starting spot now. So that's something she's been working towards for a long time, and she'll be out there today trying to keep that spot in the starting 11.
Sydney not able to make much of the restart. Pickett for Taylor Ray. Morrison. Rachel Lowe trying to steal a yard on the Sydney defence. Lowe's in behind, the cutback misses O'Grady. And Hawkesby had a cool head. Things opened up very quickly there for Victory, though. Can they surge again? Same phase of play. Policina. Laura Pickett's been given a bit of space here. Doesn't want to venture further forward.
Victory not afraid to go direct at times. We saw that with Rachel Lowe's run forward in behind that defensive line. Policina stopped by Claire Corbett. And that's hit the referee, so it'll be a drop ball and Sydney FC's possession. Claire Corbett only turned 16 last month in just her 10th game. At the beginning of what Sydney FC will be hoping is a very long journey. She's already part of the Australia under-17 setup. Hins in trouble against Furphy, and the ball breaks kindly as far as Sydney are concerned. Well, that was fantastic pressure. Furphy charging down Hins. Sydney FC fortunate not to get themselves in a bit of trouble there.
She backed herself in and maybe just underestimated the closing speed of Furphy there. Policina a little slick for Sakalis. Pearson. Policina retrieves the ball. Well, Victory just starting to take over the territory battle. The game largely taking place in their attacking half now. Ray. A bending ball, O'Grady. Bit of backspin is making it difficult hard against the line. And she can't keep it in. Bunge sends it onto the head of Chimeth. Now Hawkesby. O'Grady couldn't quite take the ball in stride. McLean right there. Hawkesby again. McLean. Intercepted by Pickett. Now Lowe. Scrappy at the moment. Rachel Lowe plays it back to Taylor Ray. Furphy, a loose touch. And Pearson blocked. Sophia Sakalis. Runs out to the left, Sakalis. Still a lot to do, though, and she's going wide. And now veering back into the box. And maybe took on one defender too many. Sydney not out of trouble just yet, though. Sakalis extracts the ball eventually. Everyone looking at the referee, waiting for a decision. And as a defensive midfielder yourself, T, I'm sure you found yourself locked in situations like that over your career.
Absolutely, Tay. I'm looking at that box and how crowded it is. Every single player in the Sydney FC 11 were in that box. So extremely hard to break down. You can see the focus that Sydney's had lately. It's been defensively. You can see how well organised they are. The struggle they're having at the moment is linking forward and keeping the ball and building up to their own front third.
Hinds waving players forward. 5 clean sheets this season for Heather Hinds. Not bad for a team sitting on the bottom of the ladder. She has been one of their standouts, if not the standout this campaign. Be interesting to see who wins their Player of the Year. At the end of the season, she'd have to be a top contender.
Yeah, I'd say she'd be a top contender along with Willa Pearson for that honour.
Newbon hooks the clearance towards the Victory bench. And let's throw it back down. Nalene Masto, what are you hearing on the sideline?
Well, Tayo, I'm sitting right beside Jeff Hopkins and his instructions are very clear. Keep the pressure on Sydney. He yelled at his goalkeeper, Courtney Newbon, not long ago when she launched it long, calling to be more settled, to start building out from the back, urging his side to win the second balls. He's calling for more width on the left-hand side as well to stretch that Sydney defence.
Thanks, Nalene. Offside here. We just saw a look at the bench there, Teresa Polias. Of course, Kennedy White has been ever present in the Victory team this year. She's played all 18 games, scored 8 goals, top scorer, but is one of the reasons Victory just look a little bit disjointed going forward, that they're getting used to her not being there.
Yeah, it's always disruptive when you have a big change like that. Kennedy White, she's played almost every game now, but perhaps...
Well, Policina wrestled here, and the foul is given against Claire Corbett. Policina's thoughts immediately turned to a card for the offending player, but Isabella Mawson reaches for the magic spray instead.
Here's the challenge. Policina would have been away, and Corbett's got a bit of the jersey there and the clip of the ankle. You can see why Policina was asking for the yellow ticket there, but I think the referees made the right call.
So just a telling off for the youngest player on the pitch. The second youngest player on the pitch. Willa Pearson has got Claire Corbett by about 10 months. So a wide free kick, and coming out of the shadows could make it difficult for some of the defenders here. It's going to bend away from Hins. She's clattered by her own teammate here, and the referee is still going to whistle play to a stop. Well, it was a spectacular collision and fall to the ground. Hins appears to have come off slightly better, and this is real concern here for, it looks like, Riley Tanner, who was the player that went smashing into her own keeper.
Here's the ball in, really dangerous ball in. Hins really brave to come out there, but a heavy, heavy challenge between her and Riley Tanner.
Well, the looking into the sun element of it, Hins's sole focus is on the ball. Tanner, I don't think, has much idea that her own goalkeeper is about to clatter into her.
That's right, Taya, all eyes on the ball there for Hins, and Tanner was tracking back, and it's a really heavy clash.
Hins not even talking to the medical staff at the moment. All the attention is on Riley Tanner, the Panamanian international who first came to Australia to play in the 2023 Women's World Cup, and in the most recent off-season played so well against the Matildas. There's concerns for her here, though. The 26-year-old with 3 goals to her name this season. It looked as though they were maybe just checking ribs or sternum there, T, because it was a very heavy blow.
Certainly was. She's up and standing now, which is good to see.
Well, there are the two teammates having a chat amongst each other. So Hins, as a goalkeeper, will be able to stay on the pitch, but Tanner will walk around to the halfway line, perhaps continuing to have a word to the medics as she walks past all the Sydney FC outfield subs that are warming up behind the goal.
Well, it'll be a chance for her to get her breath back. Those challenges on the ribs often take the wind out of you, so jogging now is good to see.
And James Slaveski, the interim head coach of Sydney FC, no doubt getting the word that Tanner's all right to continue, and the applause of the home fans as well for Tanner suggests that her return to the action is not far away. Sydney FC, they're going to venture forward even though they're a player short. Pearson's pass intercepted by Morrison. Blissett. Taylor Ray. Now Sakalis to Polisina. Driving crossfield ball, finds Holly Furphy. Furphy almost with Taylor Ray, not quite, who started the move. Now Corbett to Hawkesby. Ukeckel. And a belated whistle from the referee, just waiting to see if Sydney FC had an advantage.
There's the challenge on Ukeckel in the back from Blissett.
So Riley Tanner back on. Sydney FC back to 11 players. And it's over the head of Tanner in midfield here. Bunge. O'Grady. See Victory dominating possession, but can they turn it into a few more shots as they venture forward here? Furphy, first time crossed, catches a big deflection, and it's out for a corner kick after hitting the side netting.
Well, there's the pace of Furphy on show again. She's gotten away from McLean this time. Good ball forward from Pickett, and Furphy gets the look up. She got a favourable deflection there from Mason, and Sydney lucky not to get pipped there at the near post.
So the left footer, Chelsea Blissett, has crossed the pitch. And 20 minutes into this one, we'll send in a corner for Victory. Blissett, high to the back post. Hins didn't take the ball, and it was headed by Bunge, but wide at the near post, as Claudia Bunge would have seen it.
Well, this is the danger that Melbourne Victory pose time and time again. They tend to get a lot of corners in games, and Bunge and Morrison are most of the time the targets. You can see Bunge at the back post tussling with Jumeth there.
Taylor Morrison seemingly had her hands full with 2 players marking her, so set piece preparation key for Sydney, but back in open play here. Victory are venturing forward again. Sakalis clips it on, and Hinds is able to take the ball.
Victory are pushing for it here. They've got a good amount of territory. They're starting to get the fluency going out there. They're pushing players wide and things are opening up. Sydney FC need to get more control of the ball under possession going forward.
O'Grady straight to Corbett of Sydney FC. Sakalis wins it back though. Laura Pickett. Now to Holly Furphy. Morrison over to Blissett on the left flank. And now Sakalis. O'Grady. Taylor Ray. Good build-up here by Victory. 1-2 between Ray and Policina. Now Pickett. Policina sweeping a right foot of the ball, but Claire Corbett got there first. And Corbett left the ball for Luchtmeyer. And Rachel Lowe is going to capitalise! Rachel Lowe puts it in the top left corner, and Melbourne Victory strike first at Leichhardt. Just when Sydney FC appeared to have interrupted a flowing move, Victory win the ball back high up the pitch, and Rachel Lowe strikes true to make it Victory 1, Sydney 0.
Well, the Victory, they've been putting the pressure on. It was a poor clearance from Sydney FC, landed nicely at the feet of none other than Rachel Lowe, and she made no mistake of this shot. Unable to clear the lines there, and what a strike into the cobwebs, unsavable.
Well, when Sydney FC watch that back, they will have seen 3 or 4 chances to clear. And then Rachel Lowe, only her 2nd goal of the season, but that is a sweet strike.
Well, the pressure was mounting, Teo, and some of that rotational play we saw from Melbourne Victory just before that goal was amazing to see. Very effective.
You see there, 29 career for Rachel Lowe, 3rd against Sydney FC. And of course, as a former Sydney FC player, that record is pretty good against her former club, given that all 3 of them have come since she left. Sydney FC looking for a response now. Tanner knocks over Policina. One big thing that's been, as we see the foul again, discussed with Sydney FC's defending this season is voice, presence, a bit of leadership at the back. And I mean, they had multiple opportunities. Offside flag's going to bring an end to this attack here between Ukekel and Tanner. They had multiple opportunities to clear, and they just couldn't organise themselves for one player to clear the ball away.
Look, that's been the story of the season for Sydney. They've had a few interruptions with players unavailable at times, but yes, it's that seniority, that leadership they have missed. Of course, the absence of Natalie Tobin, that's, you know, huge in itself.
Here's Asen. Now McLean. Able to roll through the left channel. Battle in midfield. Pickett wins it away from Lemon. And Victory consolidate with Morrison. Blissett in space here, and you can hear the urging of Jeff Hopkins for her to take the metres on offer as she plays it up to O'Grady now. Only Furphy in the middle for O'Grady, so she waits with Sakalis, and now Sakalis is going to try and pick out Furphy, but Heather Hinds has it covered in the air. Abby Lemon, Sydney trying to go end-to-end. Luchtmeyer isolated up top at the moment, though. And Claudia Bunge is first to the ball. Hawkesby with energy, gets in front of Rachel Lowe and wins a free kick. Now it's James Slaveski's turn to shout instructions from the sideline. Interesting this. Victory opting for quite a high defensive line here. Hawkesby bends it to the edge of the box. Corbett. Players fan out back into position. Pearson. Only succeeded in picking out Sakalis. Pearson happy to keep the ball in. Corbett. Well, Sydney FC's passing combinations has been one of the things noticeable about their change since James Slaveski came in. Different personnel, players in new positions, but it's Melbourne Victory who've been able to stifle that today. Sky Blues haven't spent a huge amount of time on the ball. Hawkesby's going to just go direct here and run straight into the tackle of Kayla Morris. Listen, intercepted by Chimeth. Is this Sydney's moment? Being invited on here. Chimeth staying forward. Tori Chimeth clips it into the box. And it's cleared by Bunge.
Well, it's a good response from Sydney FC. They've gained some territory in that front third, circulating the ball quite nicely at the moment.
Lemon. Pearson. The underlapping run from Lemon, but just a little bit too close to the line, and Sydney run out of space. They have upped the ball speed and been a little bit more daring in possession, though, since conceding. Melbourne Victory largely absorbing at the moment. Bit of a change of character in the game. Morrison. Only as far as Aisen, but it's a loose touch. And now Policina caught by Aisen. Keen to make amends immediately.
There's plenty of pressure on the ball straight away when either team win possession. Pressing with pace.
Pickett down the right sideline. Lowe, the goal scorer, steps away to allow it to run onto Furphy. Furphy veering central. Leaves it with Taylor Ray. Ray. Pickett advancing forward here. Down in the corner, Laura Pickett. The cutback for Furphy. Pickett again. And that pass was deflected out, so Victory still have a throw in their attacking half on the right side. Listen. Sakalis. O'Grady able to win a wrestle against McLean and trap the ball. Policina and Ray 1-2. Victory trying to go to work again, but a shallow pass back from Furphy sees it cleared away. It's interesting, ever since we crossed down to Nalin Masto and she told us about Jeff Hopkins asking for the width to stay wide, Victory have really been able to stretch the game, and right now they're dominating possession.
Well, it's exactly what we've seen, and that's opening up the midfield space in the midfield for players like Taylor Ray and Policina to combine and show the chemistry that they have.
Can Sydney FC launch a counter here? Hawkesby telegraphed it. Morrison comes through. Policina Blissett went to ground. And it's going to fall kindly for Amber Luxmeyer. Now Riley Tanner. And Tanner was hoping for Ukeckel, but hit it a little narrow, and Morrison was able to intercept. So half an hour ticked over as things stand. Melbourne victory would be, given away here. Tanner expertly won the ball. Can she finish as well? Yes, she can. Riley Tanner brings Sydney FC level. Uncharacteristic from the victory defence. But Tanner's anticipation on show, and her 4th goal of the campaign makes it 1-1.
Perhaps a bit of complacency from Melbourne victory here. Poorly placed pass, but Tanner was in the perfect position to take that one-on-one against Newbon and finish that wonderfully well. She has still had it all to do here up against Courtney Newbon. And what a finish under pressure there.
4th of the season in 16 appearances for Tanner, and her 1st goal in 6 weeks since scoring away to Brisbane prior to the Asian Cup break. That is a good one-on-one finish against Courtney Newbon too.
It was brilliant, and that's what Sydney FC, they seem to have been working on defence, even in that front third. So well placed for Tanner there.
And so the equaliser victory did not enjoy being in front for very long. And with that equaliser, Perth Glory's season is back alive. I was literally about to say that as things stand, it would be Newcastle and Perth eliminated today, but that's the state of how close the season is, that one goal can change it all. And Victory will be aware that their own ladder position is in jeopardy with a draw today. Furphy able to steer it back to Morrison. Blissett. Blissett stays down here, maybe just a stray arm to the face, but Victory will attack in the meantime. Polacina able to free the feet for a shot, but it didn't swerve enough to trouble Heather Hinds.
Lovely play between Sakalis and Polacina on the left side there. Beautiful little touch from Polacina to set herself up for a shot, but Hinds had it covered.
Bunge pops a long ball over the top, and that will be comfortably keepers. You used such an interesting word analysing how Victory gave up the goal. Complacency, Therese. We've seen them play the ball uncontested under almost no pressure around their backline for so much of the game. I wonder if Sydney FC might think about advancing a few numbers up the pitch and pressing even more.
Well, those goals seem to have sparked them. The Victory goal they conceded first.
As we watch this diagonal ball sail out for a goal kick.
Seemed to have woken Sydney up. And then they got one back at a really good time. And now they seem to have settled into this match. But it's sometimes hard coming up against a team with nothing to lose.
Tumeth. Tanner deflects the wrong way as far as she's concerned, but it does find a friend in Tumeth. And now Ukeckel. Pearson. Second crack at it here for Pearson, this time to Ukeckel, and then the clearance down the line. Seized upon by Morrison.
Well, they'll be extra careful now on those square passes between centre backs.
Well, Tanner anticipating the back pass there for Bunge, but Bunge had just enough space to go and retrieve the ball. Ray, Ukeckel, Hawkesby, intercepted by Ray. Seeking O'Grady, and Asen sticking to O'Grady there, but at the expense of conceding a corner kick.
Well, it's working for Melbourne Victory. They're quite direct at times with those forward runs from O'Grady and Furphy, and low at times as well. Here's the example from Taylor Ray. She's always looking forward. That's her first intent, to go forward. And now they've won another corner.
So Policina on corner duty from the left side. Right into the pack of players. Asen with the header, skimming through the box. And Chimeth clearing. And Lowe puts that one into the bay of seats. Enjoying an afternoon in the sun over on the outer side of Leichhardt Oval. Blizzard. Sakalis breaking wide to the left. Circling back into the middle for Taylor Ray. And Ray's pass straight to Lemon. Tanner stopped in her tracks by Pickett. Ray wins the ball. Taylor Ray to Rachel Lowe. O'Grady return pass. Lowe and goalkeeper Hinds out to take the ball. It just kept running away from Rachel Lowe.
Yeah, once again, just getting away. But Heather Hinds, amazing at reading the game and being proactive. She's done it time and time again for Sydney FC this season.
Ball bouncing over the head of Luftmeyer, who has really had to work hard to get involved in general play in this half, playing as the centre forward in the Sydney FC team. They don't really have a natural alternative on the bench today. They might think about a positional reshuffle, but with Sky Halmerick away on young Matilda's duty, the other centre forward they've used this season not available today. Here's O'Grady, gets to the ball, big collision, and the bounce is wide. And O'Grady is left prone on the turf as Heather Hinds gets back up. And the trainer has been called immediately for O'Grady.
Big commitment from Heather Hinds. She committed to coming out here. And there was late contact on O'Grady.
Well, I think Hinds is in the process of pulling out of challenging for the ball there, but is there enough to constitute a foul? The referee's decided it's just incidental, so it looks as though it's going to be a goal kick, but there could still be ramifications here for O'Grady in an injury sense. There's a good show of sportsmanship from Hinds, just checking in.
Yeah, it's good to see. Apology from Hinds there. That attempt to pull out would have taken away a lot of that impact.
O'Grady is sore, but she's up. All the victory subs are currently warming up behind the goal at the opposite end. Kennedy White on the bench today. Of course, Alana Janchevsky with a history of playing in the front three as well. But for now, it looks like O'Grady is going to soldier on and continue in the game.
Both teams have stacked benches today, so come later in the game, I'm sure there's plenty of players that will liven things up if it's needed.
Hawkesby putting it over the top. Luchtmeyer is going to be second to the ball behind Newbon here. Newbon just invited the pressure on, though, slicing it towards Pickett, and Victory give up the ball.
Yeah, Newbon playing with fire a little bit with her clearances, just taking that extra little bit of time to release the ball on some occasions.
McLean. Furphy wins the ball away. Facing the wrong way, though, Furphy, and has got two opponents right on her hammer. Has done pretty well there to emerge with a throw in.
She did really well there. She was double teamed by Lemon and McLean.
Ray and Luchtmeyer battling for possession. Ukekel at the fall. Heavy touch. Showed it to Taylor Ray, and Ray set Policina clear. Now Chelsea Blissett venturing forward. Blissett trying to stick a 1-2 with Sakalis, but not quite able to pull it off against the line. Sakalis playing it back to Morrison. Again, Sydney happy to stand off Morrison's pass. Taylor Ray. Now the contest begins. Blissett with physicality. Sakalis. O'Grady runs the ball down, and Asen is able to clear. Well, getting back up to a sprint, Ella O'Grady, after that big collision only a few minutes ago.
It's an intense battle out there with O'Grady up against Asen for the majority of duels.
Furphy trying to twist across back into the penalty area, but skies it out instead. Holly Furphy, who scored on her Ninja A-League debut last season against Sydney FC. Jeff Hopkins, as is customary, scrolling away. He's almost at the bottom of a page there, Teresa, so I imagine he's got plenty to talk about during the halftime team talk.
He's frantically scribbling notes there, so seems like it's going to be a busy halftime talk for Melbourne victory.
They can't be satisfied with the draw today, Victory, because it could leave them vulnerable to being leapfrogged by Central Coast Mariners tomorrow. They're taking on Canberra. Here's Furphy, deflection, and Hins had to claim it because Sophia Sakalis was waiting for a tap-in on the goal line, had it found a way through.
Well, great reaction from Heather Hins here. It took a dangerous deflection, and Policina was lurking. Sakalis actually was lurking at that far post, so well done again from Heather Hins. She steps up and keeps her team in the game.
Concentration being tested at the end of the first half. Lemon, Ukekel, and now Pearson. Chimeth over to McLean. Charlotte McLean with a bit of space to venture forward. A hopeful pass down towards the corner, and Bunge. It's not going to roll out naturally, so Bunge has to take a touch here. And, well, if anything, well done Amber Luchtmeyer. She's been able to just worry Claudia Bunge into giving away this throw in, which Sydney FC take quickly. McLean driving it. Headed by Bunge. Only as far as Hawkesby. Scoops a shot. Didn't strike it with any real power. Low. Hawkesby again. Take two from Hawkesby. Blocked this time, and Policina clears. O'Grady against Asen, and Asen comes in and wins the ball. Sydney sensing that this is a moment to really press. Pearson getting forward. Abby Lemon popping up in an attacking midfield role. Here she is now on the ball. Lemon back to Hawkesby. Sydney creating an overload by sending Lemon up the pitch. Only seconds of regulation to go. There will be a decent chunk of stoppage due to the injuries to Riley Tanner and also Ella O'Grady. And the fourth official lifts the board and shows 4 additional minutes. And this is interesting from Sydney T. They've actually made a conscious decision to push a few players forward.
Well, they're picking their moments to press up top. This all happened from Luchtmeyer pressing Bunge when she was facing backwards, which is the greatest time to press a defender.
Great run by Tanner. Got the better of Policina, but not enough to convince the referee there was a foul.
Not too much of an argument from Sydney FC, but certainly was the hand over the shoulder there from Policina.
And with that hand bandage on from her broken wrist earlier in the season, it perhaps catches the eye even more so there, but referee happy to let them play. Sydney FC right back to task. They are trying to finish the half with a surge. Pearson sends a cross in, and it's going to beat all than sundry inside the penalty area. Furphy trying to launch a counter the other way against Lemon. Now happy to calm things down. 1 minute of the additional 4 ticked by. Sydney FC stand off again. Allow Courtney Newbond to bring the ball to a standstill. Now the press comes. Tanner was coming in from the blind side. Pickett with the long ball. Hawkesby leaves it with Policina. McLean though. Ray had a say in it, but Pickett more emphatically takes possession. And Bunge. Well, our Victory happy just to steer this game to half-time with a 1-1 scoreline. Or are they about to construct one last attack at the end of the first half? Ray, low. Blissett, given away. Sydney FC through Ukekal. Surrounded by Victory opponents. In comes Tubeth. And we tick into the last minute of the allocated 4. Asen. Crossfield pass is going to find Tanner. Tanner not even close to Lemon. Bunge able to clear.
Bit of a habit in the Sydney FC attacking game. Just that they're telegraphing their passes going forward at times, and Victory just know where they're going to pass the ball. They're just looking at that ball before they play it.
Well, you heard the collision there between Pickett and Tanner, who's already had one major blow in this half when she was run into by her own goalkeeper. Just bounced off Laura Pickett there, who is a very physical defender.
There's the collision, and yeah, heavy fall there from Tanner. Pickett with the arms up.
So the halftime whistle goes. Melbourne Victory capitalised on some Sydney FC indecisiveness to take the lead through Rachel Lowe. But it was a short-lived advantage. Sydney FC striking back when an errant pass was intercepted and returned to full effect by Riley Tanner. And that sets up the game tantalisingly. It's a scoreline that would eliminate Newcastle today, but would at least leave the Perth Glory alive in the top 6 race. Never mind the effect it has on these two teams. Halftime, Sydney FC 1, Melbourne Victory 1. And so as both teams make their way into the rooms, stick around because the experts on the couch will take you through all the key moments of the first half. On the other side of this short break, you're watching the Ninja A-League.
The A-Leagues, Professional Footballers Australia, and Football Coaches Australia are taking a stand against online bullying in Australian football. There is no place for racism, abuse, or hate in our sport. Play it, please. Say hello to the Ninja Slushy, the easy, convenient way to make frozen drinks at home. No ice means no watered down drinks. No blending means smooth, perfect texture every time. Just pour, slush, and enjoy. Find one-touch programs for any drink you want. Enjoy perfect results. Transform almost anything into Ninja Slushy. Get ready to cheer. Just like Liberty supports the A-Leagues, they're on your team too. Whether you're planning a holiday or buying a new home, they can provide the assist you need to keep your free thinking goals. Liberty, loans for free thinkers. Thanks to our platinum partner, Mega Rewards, you've got the chance to win some incredible experiences and prizes until the end of the season. Think VIP match day moments, exclusive access, and money can't buy opportunities. All you have to do is join as a free member at megarewards.au. You're in the running. Football is tough, but being diagnosed with cancer is tough. That's why Sydney FC and Cancer Council are kicking off against cancer together. Show your support by visiting cancercouncil.com.au/donate or by scanning the QR code on screen. Looking good, eh?
Big jumps to even bigger jumps. Get the GMF feeling. Hey Sydney FC fans, we want to see the moments from this season that left you wanting more.
We're going to be handpicking our favourite videos and photos, and epic prizes will be up for grabs.
Check out the details in our caption for more. Good luck.
All the information that makes a diagnosis is scary. All the researchers working on the next cancer breakthrough. And all the 131120 support staff who are there to listen.
Halftime here between Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory in the Big Blue. Welcome to the Hungry Jacks halftime show. I'm joined by Grace Gill and Ash Sykes to break down all the action from the first half. And ladies, there is plenty to talk about. We know for Sydney FC, goals have been harder to come by this season, but they find themselves 1-1 with Melbourne Victory at half-time.
Well, it's certainly been a big blue. There have been some massive moments in that first 45 minutes. A little surprised, Ash, that players have returned to their feet in the way that they have. I'd say Victory mostly in the driver's seat, but it's on a knife's edge at the moment.
Yeah, it's been competitive, certainly competitive. Yeah, Victory having the bulk of the possession. Sydney found their way back into it towards the end of the half there, off the back of a goal to level things up. I think both teams will be looking to improve their performances in the second half. I think it's at times been a tiny little bit sloppy.
A combination of performance so far between both sides as we move into the Harvey Norman highlights and that first goal that started all of the action for Melbourne Victory. Grace Gill, what did you make of this one from Claudia Bunge?
Well, it was a wonderful, wonderful hit from Rachel Lowe. Yeah, really thundering strike. But it came from some very poor defensive work from Sydney FC, which is not what you want to see. No one stepped up and took responsibility in the moment, and this was the response from Sydney.
Yeah, both goals you can really say came perhaps from errors from either the opposition rather than massive amount of creativity. But, you know, Tanner here had a long time leading up to the goalkeeper one-on-one. Sometimes you can get in your own head a little bit too much. It wasn't a problem for her. She solved it at home very easily.
Well, it's 1-1 at halftime, and we know victory. It's a finals push for them. This result is very important. What are you expecting from them in the second half?
Yeah, I think we'll see a little bit tighter from victory. They have had most of the possession. They're in the driver's seat, and I think they'll really want to capitalise on those moments. They've got some good options off the bench as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the likes of the Kennedy White very soon into the second half. I think they just need to find a little bit more control in their final third.
Yeah, I've loved their combination play and their build-up, especially down the right-hand side with Ray and Furphy. You know, little few 1-2s, little bounce plays, that sort of thing, creating crossing chances. And Sydney FC are getting plenty of numbers back in the box, which, you know, kind of makes it hard to play through. But, I mean, victory just, you know, tidy up their last options. I think some of the issues with the sloppiness that I mentioned before has been both teams look like at times they're in a hurry to do things. And I think you need to be quick, but don't hurry. You know, quick and decisive, move the ball around, but don't hurry, because then that leads to mistakes.
What could Sydney FC do to cause an upset today?
Well, I think they're going to introduce some players off the bench as well. Kaylee Talon-Henniker, just great speed, impact. I wouldn't be surprised if we see her very soon as well.
Well, there you go, everyone. That was the Hungry Jacks halftime show, but that's not it. There's plenty to come. The second half is not far away, so don't go anywhere.
Protect this house.
Every single person who joins us at Macquarie University brings something unique. Bring your passions, your dreams and ideas, your potential. And when that potential is multiplied by our collective, amazing things can happen. We call it U to the power of us. Macquarie University.
When you invest with equalize, you start seeing investors everywhere. You see, equalize really is everywhere.
Enough power to tow up to 3.5 tons. Enough space for the whole team. And a nice style and tech made for wherever life takes them. Love how needed in our season and units. Say hello to the Ninja Slushie, the easy, convenient way to make frozen drinks at home. No ice means no watered down drinks. No blending means smooth, perfect texture. Just pour, splash, and enjoy. 5 one-touch programs for any drink you want. Transform almost anything. Enjoy perfect results
Earlier today, an upset in the Ninja A-League Women's. Newcastle winning 3-1 against Adelaide United at Service FM Stadium in South Australia. Scores were locked in 1-1 at half-time, but a second-half blitz from the visitors helped guide the Jets to a resounding away win. The match-sealing goal scored by Kelly Brown in the final 10 minutes of play. Adelaide, however, despite the loss, still firmly in the playoff picture with just one match of their season to go. They host Wellington on Friday evening. And don't forget about the Ninja A-League Women's Digital Heroes. You can start your digital card collection for free today. Head to aleagues.com.au/heroes to register. Unlock 7 complimentary player cards and go into the draw to win one of 3 epic prizes. The second half of the Big Blue is just moments away. Sydney FC fighting for a win at home against a polished Melbourne Victory side that have shown what they can do in the first half. Kick-off to the second is just after the break.
Rachel Lowe and Holly Furphy having a chat just before second half kickoff. All smiles at the moment. Rachel Lowe with her second goal of the Ninja A-League season, able to put Victory in front, but Sydney FC would hit back, and that gives us a 1-1 halftime score. Teresa Polias, as you rejoin me, Victory back out on time, but Sydney FC haven't even emerged from the rooms yet. They're going to make Victory wait here.
Well, they must have been talking about plenty of things that they can tweak in this second half to be a bit more effective. But so far, typically a tense Big Blue.
We did see one player warming up out on the pitch at halftime. That was Shay Holman, who's on the Sydney FC bench today. And with that in mind, Teresa, are there any subs you'd like to see sooner rather than later for either team? There's Holman now. It doesn't appear to be taking the bib off just yet, but we'll wait for the fourth official to walk back to her position. There's some of the other Sydney subs like Kirsty Fenton on the right and Kaylee Talon-Henniker in the middle.
Well, Talon-Henniker, I think, could come on and wreak some havoc along that wing there. But plenty of options for either team.
So Sydney back out on the pitch. They want to huddle up, though. Melbourne Victory have already broken away into position. And Mackenzie Hawkesby and Amber Luchtmeyer are the last two out of the tunnel at the start of the second half. Melbourne Victory, a draw is not a great result for them. It does leave them potentially vulnerable to being knocked out of the finals if they are unable to win away to Perth next weekend and results go against them in other games, particularly those of the Central Coast Mariners. So there is plenty to play for both teams in the second half. As things stand, Sydney FC would be jumping out of last place. Back underway at the start of the second half at Leichhardt Oval then. Sydney FC trying to end a 5-game head-to-head winless run in the Big Blue and avoid Melbourne Victory taking the record streak of unbeaten games in this famous derby. But Ella O'Grady is trying to capitalise from kickoff after another giveaway and a goal that had some similarities to how Victory took the lead in the first half.
Not the start that Sydney FC wanted. Sloppy once again. At the back, an error there from Tumeth and Corbett. And it lands for Ella O'Grady, and I'm sure she'd want that shot back. Flashes wide.
Well, Sydney FC got themselves in a tangle, and then Sophia Sakalis able to play that pass to O'Grady. And that might give Victory just a bit of a buzz of energy right to start the second 45. Here's Corbett looking to make amends, but can only find Pickett. As you see who's out on the pitch appearing at the base of your screen at the moment. The offside flag goes up here against the Victory. Heather Hinds. Willa Pearson wins the header. Claire Corbett. Seized upon by Policina. Ella O'Grady back to goal. Policina leaves it with Rachel Lowe. Laura Pickett getting forward over on the right. In a bit of space here, Pickett. Time to pick her mark with the cross, but it bends away from everyone in the box. And the flag is up again. 2 offsides within the first 2 minutes of the half.
Well, a positive start for Melbourne Victory. They've come out with intent. A couple of offsides, though, something they need to fix up if they want to capitalise on this momentum.
Tumeth taking her time over the restart, sizing up the options. Decides long to Pearson over on the right is the answer. Pearson crashing in on Sakalis and a free kick given. Willa Pearson, who's only just come back from suspension for accumulating 5 yellow cards.
Yeah, she's just swept up Sakalis there. What a game Sakalis is having. What a season she's had. She found an opportunity early in the season to get a start, and she's earned that spot and earned that right.
Has never really left the Victory team ever since, after a bit of an early season injury crisis. Had her starting in round 1. As the ball goes out here, it's a chance to check in with Narlene Masto, who's got a word from both camps, back out after the halftime break.
Yes, Teo, I've spoken to the assistant coaches from both the sides. Now, from a Sydney FC perspective, James Slavesky is just calling for more communications between the players. They want to limit the balls in behind, but also be more confident on the ball. And they have noticed they are getting caught out wide, so they want to keep it a bit more central. As for Victory, Jeff Hopkins was pretty pleased overall with what he's seen, but they just need to play the ball a bit quicker. And as we know, Victory have scored well over half of their goals from that right-hand side this season, and they'll be hoping to continue that trend here in the second half.
Thank you, Narlene. We'll keep checking in because expect to see a flurry of substitutes at some point of this half. Back pass here. Tanner, is it going to be a repeat? It is! Tanner's got 2, and it's giving season from the Victory. Riley Tanner has cashed in 2 big gifts, and Sydney FC have come from behind to lead.
Well, it's another catastrophic back pass from Melbourne Victory. Utter danger, and they've played with fire again. Riley Tanner, she's been hedging her bets between those defenders all game. And once again, she picks up the ball and puts it away. Amazing stuff from Tanner.
Well, it's 2 for Tanner, but I think more tellingly, it's 2 for Kayla Morrison, the Victory captain. It's extraordinary that Melbourne Victory have been their own worst enemy here, and they have not heeded the lessons from the first half.
Well, I'm wondering, is it the element of surprise there that they thought Sydney FC would sit off once again, and just a blind pass into a dangerous area?
Well, Victory, the gauntlet is thrown down to them here. Chelsea Blissett, Sophia Sakalis, Policina looping out. And that goal wasn't just cheered by the Sydney FC fans, because this result keeps Newcastle alive, at least until tomorrow. And that's all you can ask for at the end of a very clustered ladder at the home and away season.
Well, it's intelligent play from Tanner as well, because she's seen that habit in that run of play from the Victory, and she's continued to place herself in good areas to potentially win the ball.
What you and I were discussing during half-time, what minute is Sydney going to play a more committed, organised press? I guess when you win the ball back from 2 mistakes, the standoff press is actually, you'd have to say it's working, and maybe that's why they're not feeling so compelled to commit the entire front three to press the ball carrier when Victory's deep in defence.
Well, after that first Sydney goal, they have stepped up, and Tanner continued with placing herself in those dangerous areas. So
now a free kick headed away by Bunge. Hawkesby, bit of spin on the ball, helped out low. Now Policina. Asen, and a good touch from Corbett to find Tumeth. Now Abby Lemon off and running. Can she chase down this pass? Gets there right at the line. Lemon, Hawkesby, off Taylor Ray, and that just held it up in the air. Chelsea Blissett. Now Corbett with a strike, blocked immediately by Policina. Blissett and Sakalis. The game's stretched at the moment. Back to Chelsea Blissett. And now Kayla Morrison. Tanner leading the press, as you might expect. She's on a hat-trick now, don't forget. And Rachel Lowe goes falling onto the pads and then into the camera pit. There's only room for one of you. Get out of there, Rachel.
Good sportsmanship from James Slaveski there, helping her out.
Shadows have now crept across the entire ground, bar just a little sliver down at Melbourne Victory's attacking end. It's a cool day, so I don't think the tempo is going to drop too much here. Here's another look at Rachel Lowe.
Yeah, just camera padding behind her, and wow, a heavy clash between Tanner and O'Grady.
So the restart from Charlotte McLean. Ukekel chasing, but won't get there.
I'll tell you, it is great conditions out there, and I think we're going to see this game really open up and some end-to-end action.
Still plenty of this game to be played. James Slaveski organising from the sideline. Sydney FC players. Lots of one-on-one marking up the pitch. Bunge over to Newbon. Blissett. Long ball for Policina. O'Grady calling for the ball. O'Grady brings it down. Who's following up though? Rachel Lowe. Furphy. O'Grady tried to shoot, but just had her shooting motion interrupted there and has hooked it as a result. But with the aid of a deflection, it's going to be a corner.
Well, another corner for Melbourne Victory. Pressure's on Sydney FC. They know how dangerous Victory are off corners. They're trying not to concede corners.
See there, Sydney FC haven't had a corner of their own in the game so far. Rihanna Policina. A drifter. Pearson, good header, read it well in the air. And Hawkesby with Bunge. Oh, that appeared to be a clean header from Pearson, but the assistant referee has seen it differently, and so Sydney FC will take a breather here and allow Charlotte McLean to come across and throw the ball in. Taylor Ray, Jodie Ukekel. Knew that Pearson was on. Pearson back to Hinds. O'Grady's going to press all the way, and the goalkeeper was given the hurry up there and had to just find safety by any means.
Well, that's an effective press there from O'Grady. Hinds taking no risks, clearing the ball.
O'Grady takes on Asen. And enough of a tap of the ankles there to constitute a foul.
Well, the battle between those two continues. Plenty of duels out there between Asen and O'Grady. Really entertaining.
Hins clips the ball over to Abby Lennon. Furphy against McLean. Sharp McLean down the line. Amber Luxmeyer able to turn and face. Immediately closed down by Victory defenders, but through comes Tanner. And the sidestep, Riley Tanner taking on Morrison. Morrison uses the arms effectively. Tanner back in. It's a real battle between those two. Tanner flattered late. She took on the Victory defence single-handedly there, Riley Tanner, and she's provoked.
Yeah, Tanner with the skill on display. There's a shoulder charge there and a late challenge from Pickett coming across. So definitely a foul there. It's in a good area here for Sydney FC.
I think Mackenzie Hawkesby is lobbying the referee for cards, but unsuccessfully so. Isabella Mawson has had a number of the big games this season. She's definitely one of the top-ranked referees on that basis in the Ninja A-League. And Hawkesby's thoughts are now immediately on this free kick. Could Sydney FC build themselves a 2-goal buffer? All about the delivery from Hawkesby. An in-swinging free kick, which has a little too much on it, and none of the teammates are brought into play.
Yeah, disappointing delivery from Mackenzie Hawkesby, and she knows that. Great opportunity there, lost.
Jimeth wins the ball from Ray's pass. Ukekel. Sidestep from Jodie Ukekel. And right between the eyes, Claudia Bunge is able to make a conventional save.
There wasn't much else on there for Sydney FC. They were quite narrow. So there was no other option really then to take the shot, but not enough on that to beat Courtney Newbon.
The ball has stayed in here from the attempted Bunge clearance. How much do you think the way Victory have conceded their 2 goals today is playing on their minds? I mean, you want to keep as much normalcy to your game style as possible. Stay with Tori Chimeth advancing here as it runs off Amber Luxmeyer. But are you seeing apprehension as Jeff Hopkins is briefing a couple of subs? Are you seeing them second-guessing themselves as they play the ball around the back?
But around the back only. I wouldn't say getting forwarded in their front third, but you can see when one centre-back has the ball, the other isn't even showing. It's Courtney Newbon who's stepping up to receive the pass now. So they're extra cautious. I think they are in their head playing out.
So Alana Ganchevsky and Kennedy White set to join us at the next break in play. Victory would love that to be an equaliser. Polisina ran into 2 opponents, Hawkesby and Chimeth combining well. And Chimeth trying to set Luxmeyer away here. Amber Luxmeyer, the flag stays down for now. And Claudia Bunge is going to get defensive side of it and see the ball over the line. Fourth official not ready to raise the board just yet, so the subs still waiting in the wings for Victory. Blissett to Sakalis. Back to Chelsea Blissett. And now with this throw in, well, Blissett's taken it, but unaware that over on the opposite side of the pitch, substitutions are already being made. So Laura Pickett comes off here, as does Chelsea Blissett on the opposite side. So Janchevsky will go, I suspect, into a defensive role. And Kennedy White's arrival might prompt a bit of a reshuffle of players here. Laura Pickett heads to the sideline and Blissett will make the long walk around behind the goals. Have Victory gone for a formation change as well? We'll assess it as it shakes out here, but Teresa, it seems as though Alani Janchevsky has taken up a far more attacking role than what we've seen at times over the last 2 seasons when Jeff Hopkins has used her as a left back.
Well, when that happens, we often see Taylor Ray really sit back further. So the signs are there, Teo, that they are going for it, really pushing on those right and left defensive players.
8 goals this season for Kennedy White, but hasn't scored in her last 4. So as the leading striker, perhaps that was enough for Jeff Hopkins to lose patience today. February 1st was the last time White found the back of the net, of course, with a couple of weeks there occupied by the group stages of the AFC Women's Asian Cup. So it's 4 games, but it's also almost 2 months since she last scored a goal. Here's Ukekel, and too much on that pass, which bends into the gloves of Newbon.
Well, 2 amazing players to bring on in Kennedy White and Janchevsky.
Ella O'Grady ran shoulder to shoulder into Chimeth just before that pass got played. No love lost between those two, and the physicality is stepping up.
Well, there's been plenty of physicality on show in this match. No surprises in this fixture. It's always been quite intense and heated between the 2 teams. There's plenty of history there.
And the more desperate Melbourne Victory get chasing this game, the more likely we are perhaps to see tempers fray. Morrison drops it at the edge of the penalty area. White with the flick header. No one else running onto it, though. And Heather Hinds is going to use every second available. If Sydney FC do win today, the Western Sydney Wanderers would have to win away to Wellington at Pororua Park tomorrow to avoid the wooden spoon, as Bunge clatters Hawkesby here, and Isabella Mawson does reach for the first yellow card of the game, and it's for the New Zealand centre-back, Claudia Bunge.
Well, if it weren't for the card coming out there, Sydney FC were away, but it's a very late challenge there from Bunge. She got the end of Hawkesby's foot there.
Well, was she fouled by Tanner in
well, the refs
the incident
missed that
prior?
one. Yeah, potentially there. Foul from Tanner, but the ref didn't see it. Play on. And she earns a yellow card, so bit of a double whammy.
McLean takes the resulting free kick and takes it to no great effect. Puff of the cheeks from James Slaveski, watching it all unfold from the sidelines. Furphy dragged deep into the defensive half. Bouncing ball from Bunge. White. Missed Furphy with the back pass. Looked Meyer. And Furphy wins the ball again. Ray to Sakalis. Sophia Sakalis weaving through the centre of the pitch. And then maybe just lost balance there, giving up the ball. Hawkesby. Tanner free as a bird over on the left here, and Sydney FC can advance. Riley Tanner plays the early ball, and Morrison denies Luchtmeyer possession. Tanner, a big deflection, and that will be advantage Newbon.
Well, an advantageous deflection for Victory there, but you can see them committing so many numbers forward. The risk there is the Sydney FC transition, but Melbourne Victory have to go for it. Their final spot is on the line.
Tanner in on Bunge. McLean plays Tanner. Still Riley Tanner. Does she shoot on the tight angle? Tanner, the cutback. Ukekel saved. And Ukekel again off the post. Lemon denied. And the ball's out for a corner, but it should have been 3 for Sydney.
How it wasn't 3 for Sydney, we do not know. Tanner once again charging forward, and Ukekel gets a second go at it. Deflects off the Victory into the post, and then it's blasted over.
Well, Jodie Ukekel must feel she's cursed. She still hasn't scored that first A-League goal.
The hands were in the air. What has she got to do to score a goal?
Sydney still have a corner. Hawkesby to take. Victory rattled and teetering. Hawkesby's corner. Good defensive header from Morrison. And Rachel Lowe is first to the ball. White, fresh off the bench, is going to try and stretch the field here. That's good defending from Abby Lemon. Sydney making themselves counterproof there. And now Corbett. Bumped off the ball. Good defending from the front from Lowe. Policina, O'Grady trying to show her speed here, and the cutback just tried to do too much when maybe she had a little bit more time to find her balance there.
Yeah, O'Grady just playing that early cut back blind, and no one was there in her team to have a shot on goal. Here's that counter-attack from Victory. O'Grady does really well to get onto that, but Tumeth had her covered.
Ray. And Ukekel clearing to Tanner. Only Luchtmeyer ahead of the ball. Luchtmeyer. She's sent sprawling out of the field of play, and it means that Bunge has the ball uncontested here. Newbon again, stepping out of goal to effect the switch of flanks over to the left. Now the press comes all the way up to Newbon, a hurried pass. McLean. Ukekel plays it into the midriff of Ray, but she's quickly back up. It's deflected kindly for Luchtmeyer. Can't get the pass going around the corner though. It's 3-on-1 here. Sakalis under pressure. Policina sliding in. Desperation stages. It's only the 68th minute. It's starting to feel like the last 5.
That was game-saving defensive work from Bunge there. She knew the side that had the advantage. She blocked it and saves her team. That was a 3-on-1 situation.
Well, I suggested that tempers would fray the more desperate this game gets, and right on cue, it's a war of words between Taylor Ray, Jodie Ukekel and Riley Tanner.
There's so much on the line. Here's what prompted it. The reaction there from Taylor Ray. She didn't get the foul. She deemed that Tanner had the hands on her, and she gets a talking to.
Well, that angle shows that Ray was pushed in the neck, and maybe that's why she took such great exception to it. So, Shea Holman, who's been battling injury all season, will be coming on here for just her 3rd appearance of the campaign, and it's for the 16-year-old Claire Corbett. So, Corbett heads to the sideline, and Holman, who herself is only 20, comes on. And the 20 minutes she played last week, it was the first time she'd been in a game since the 15th of November. So hopefully her comeback from injury is continuing apace here, as she's been given another 22 minutes here.
It's so great to see Shea Holman back. It's been a long time coming for her. She's an important player in this Sydney FC setup.
White. Morrison getting forward, and Furphy can't hook it back. However, the ball has stayed in. Now it has found its way out. Trying to eavesdrop on Jeff Hopkins here because he's shouting at the top of his voice across the pitch.
Well, you know it's serious when Jeff Hopkins is out of his seat.
Well, Victory have committed to such an attacking formation and so many attacking changes so early in the game. In a sense, they've shown their hand as to just how desperate they are to find a way back into the game.
Well, the last thing you want to do is leave to the last round for that finals push. There'll be so much pressure.
Foul here by Tanner, afters as well. Sakalis now, and Luchtmeyer. And Isabella Mawson, the central referee, needs to take charge here. Tanner is a very subtle antagonist. We saw this a couple of weeks ago against the Newcastle Jets when she got into a bit of a collision course with Josie Allen.
Look, there was certainly afters there from Tanner, but Victory needed to be smart about this. Sydney FC are going to do this. This is their rival. They are trying to spoil Melbourne Victory's finals push. They're out of the finals, so the next best thing is knocking your own rivals out.
Sophia Sakalis and Riley Tanner pick up yellow cards. And both of them now have to behave lest they be sent off before the finish of this one.
Well, at some point, tempers needed to be settled, so it's a good decision from Isabel Mosson.
Kirsty Fenton is getting a final tactical briefing, so Sydney FC are going to make 2 subs in quick succession, seemingly. Alana Janchevsky is a great exponent over a dead ball. And this could be really dangerous here. She scored goal of the year last season with a free kick against Sydney FC. Just a good delivery for a teammate is what's needed here. Janchevsky drifts it. First header away from Holman, the volley through traffic, and Polisina is denied by a save from Hinds.
We've seen that all too often, that pattern of play. It's Morrison who's the target, and Polisina lurking in a good position at the top of the box. She gets good connection, keeps it down.
And now at the other end, Ray was there. A foul on Tanner. Ray protests her innocence, and the referee agrees. Play continues. Oh, the crowd's going to get hot if Victory score down the other end now. Tumeth will prevent it, though. Hawkesby and Furphy takes over. Here's Polisina, and McLean, the cool head in a crisis, puts it out for a throw.
Well, as expected, it is end-to-end here. Very entertaining.
Rachel Lowe. Now Polisina. A driven cross. White's fleck. Stopped in the 6-yard box and cleared by McLean. O'Grady nearly got there. Sakalis. Big deflection, and it rears up for a comfortable catch from Hinds.
Well, here's the... I mean, there is an argument. There was an arm on Tanner there, but Isabella Mosson did look towards her assistant referee. No flag was put up.
Anastasia Filikaridis, the assistant, over on the outer side. Here's Ukekel. Lemon making a good run. It's Abby Lemon! Straight at the keeper. Well, it was a defender's finish from Abby Lemon.
It certainly was. She'd love to have that one back. But amazing work to actually beat Bunge here. Cuts inside, and just not enough on that shot to beat Newbon.
It's frantic at the moment. Chances at both ends. Holman, Tanner. You see Kaylee Talon-Henniker has now been ready to come on. Victory have got subs of their own. Looks like Grace Maher is going to get some game time here. Hawkesby, Ukekel. It's Jodie Ukekel with the aid of a deflection. A corner kick. Sydney FC.
Well, the momentum is shifting so swiftly at the moment, but a good passage again from Sydney FC.
So Fenton a defender and Talon-Henniker a winger. Grace Maher can play both midfield and defence. It'll be interesting to see who Victory bring her on for here. Wonder if the cards may play a factor in the decision-making. Hawkesby has a corner. Towards the penalty spot it goes. Headed away by Bunge. Only as far as Pearson. Blocked. McLean also blocked. And cleared away by Furphy. All the subs down waiting next to the 4th official for the next break in play, which arrives now. And so the moment of truth for whose afternoon is coming to a close. It is going to be Charlotte McLean coming off here upon her return to Sydney FC for Kirsty Fenton. And the home fans show their appreciation. And Amber Luchtmeyer will come off for Kaylee Talon-Henniker. While for Melbourne Victory, it's Rihanna Polisina who's making way for Grace Maher. Teresa Polias, what do you think of these changes?
It's an interesting change. I wouldn't say it's overly attacking from Melbourne Victory, even though they are going for it. Perhaps Jeff Hopkins just wants a little more cover defensively with those Sydney FC transitions.
But you do lose Polisina's ability to shoot from distance and also dead ball ability. I guess you bring on Ma, who can also take pretty good free kicks and corners.
Yeah, look, it is a bit of a head scratcher, but let's see what Ma brings. Obviously, she's been given some instructions.
It's only Ma's 11th appearance of the season. She's only played 19 minutes this calendar year. So she's been very sparingly used by Melbourne Victory, even though at 26 years old, 146 games, she's in the prime of her career.
I mean, most teams would love to have a player of her calibre starting every game.
Here's a flick header from O'Grady. Janchevsky, second to the ball behind Pearson. Ukekel, straight to Morrison. Ray finds Ma, first involvement in the game for Ma. And now Janchevsky from the wing, the early ball. O'Grady didn't strike it with conviction, and it wouldn't have counted because the flag was up. Sydney will take an advantage rather than put the ball down for an offside.
Here's that burst forward from Melbourne Victory. O'Grady doesn't connect. She's offside in any case.
Sakalis. Asen just chips the ball out. Sakalis loads up and goes again, but falling off balance, played it straight to Holman. Tanner. Hawkesby. It's got Ukekel breaking out to the right, and there is space to work into here. Jodie Ukekel plays the early ball, element of surprise. Taylor Ray not caught out though. Ma back to Morrison. And now Grace Ma from left back. Only as far as the halfway line and Pearson. Taylor Ray. Ukekel falling into the pass, and luck's a fortune for Sydney. They get it back on halfway.
Well, there's no signs of game management from Sydney FC just yet. We're into the 75th minute. They're still going for it, which is great to see.
I think some of the messaging from James Slaveski and Mackenzie Hawkesby since the change of coach is that they want to win a Sydney FC way. You know, they want to play a certain way. There has been an increasing level of pragmatism with how they've approached their football in the last couple of seasons. And it did win them a championship in the 2024 grand final, but obviously they missed finals for the first time last season. They're looking for maybe a more attacking, more optimistic style, which does come with a degree of risk. And they're going to break here. Hawkesby veers away from Furphy. Ukekel hiding behind the referee. And back to Chimeth. Switch of flanks is on here. Talon Henniker is going to advance. What a ball from Chimeth. Talon Henniker one-on-one against Bunch, who's on a card. Talon Henniker, the shooting channel opens. And it ended up being a comfortable catch for Newbon.
We've seen that diagonal ball from Chimeth a number of times in this game. It's been so effective, especially with a player like Talon Henniker on the flank up top. But we're seeing more glimpses of that Sydney FC way in this game. So promising signs from James Slaveski moving forward.
Hawkesby, Lemon lunging for the ball, but can only steer it towards Ma. Now Lowe, holding off Lemon. Hawkesby comes in to make it a 2-on-1, and Hawkesby wins the ball and the foul. And you can tell there's mutual respect there, because rather than squabble, it ended up in an embrace.
Well, they're two players that know each other very, very well. They've grown up in the system together. It's all smiles there. I think Lowe lucky not to go in the book for it, but well done to the referee. She's let things flow in this game, which is good to see.
Ray's header, Lowe right back into the action. That back pass is a little awkward though. Bunge trying to avoid conceding a corner. Breaks out to said corner and plays it back to Lowe down the line. Fenton. Hawkesby. Plays it to Abby Lemon. Shea Holman getting forward unmarked in the penalty area. Here's Talon Henniker. Back to Lemon. And the cross, teasing as it may have been, goes out for a goal kick, and we can throw it down to Narlene Masto, who's in the eye of the storm down there, Narlene.
Well, I hope you can hear me, Teo, over Jeff Hopkins. As I can tell you, he is not pleased. He's had some stern words with Kayla Morrison, not pleased that his defence has been getting caught in transition, wants more bodies in the defensive area. And that challenge we saw earlier between Sakalis and Riley Tanner, he just turned to the fourth official and said, you know, Riley's deliberately just trying to wind up the players. He's a bit rattled here as he can sense that Sydney really have the momentum on their side.
Jeff Hopkins, he gets up early, he watches the games, he knows Riley Tanner knows how to disguise a bit of antagonism.
Certainly does, spot on there, but you've got to get that message to your own team not to let it get to them.
They have another set piece here, the Victory. Alani Janchevsky, this time from the left flank. Aerial targets like Morrison, Bunge and White to aim for. Janchevsky, Bunge's header. And the second header from Sakalis, just an up and under. Cleared to the edge of the box. Morrison with good physicality. Low. And now Bunge. Victory stay on the attack, but how efficient can they be? Bunge trying to take on Talon Henniker. And Talon Henniker guards her corner down there. So Bunge has to opt for a throw and throws it straight to Lemon. No one really presenting for the ball at all for Victory there. Talon Henniker to Lemon. Sakalis is on a yellow. Got to be careful with subtle fouls like that. No thoughts of a second booking this time, though.
I wasn't sure that was a foul, to be honest. I thought she did get a tiny bit of the ball, but look, no card comes out. That's the main thing.
Spoken like a true defensive midfielder, Teresa.
Too right, Teo.
So Sophia Sakalis back in midfield, waiting and watching this Kirsty Fenton free kick. Sydney getting ready to make their final change. At the next break in play, Claudia Valletta. And as Lemon hooks that ball out, it's going to be Valletta, who signed as an injury replacement player and only made her first appearance of the season last week. She's going to come on here for Jodie Ukeckel, and this might be a change in formation or a bit of a reshuffle here, because it is a nominal defender coming on for an attacker, and Jodie Ukeckel, as close as she's come to scoring today, but that maiden goal still evades her.
Well, it's game management time now, Teo, for Sydney FC. They had a really organised block early in that first half, and I think we're going to see that again.
Long ball forward for the Victory, over the head of Fenton, and Lemon with Furphy lurking, plays it safe and puts it out. So here's the ladder at the moment. Central Coast Mariners still in the 6, Melbourne Victory on the outside looking in. And Perth Glory, season alive at 4 now, but there's 2 more games to come tomorrow, and the big one is Central Coast against Canberra. I promised Teresa to only spend 1 hour playing with the ladder predictor tonight, no more. Otherwise it will engulf your life trying to work out all the permutations and what's at stake.
Well, someone's got to do the hard work, Teo, and
I'm sure that with be it analysts, coaches, maybe even some players, they're all just trying to keep an eye. A little bit more hostility here between Fenton and Furphy. Again, keeping your head here, Teresa, as we get to the end of the game is so important.
Certainly is. There's a few players on yellow cards out there. The tempers are flaring.
Well, no, neither player shown a yellow there. So, again, game management from both teams, leadership on the field. All of it being tested at the pointy end of the season. Valletta, first involvement to break even in the header. Pearson advancing, but Ma wins the ball. Janchevsky just kicks it on, tries to run it down and can't. And Tumeth puts that one into the second row. Jeff Hopkins prowling his technical area, wearing the emotion of the game on his face. Here's Taylor Ray. Lemon. Low. Kayla Morrison's been thrown forward here. Victory are going to leave the back door that little bit more unlocked now. Taylor Ray and Claudia Bunge appear to be in a back three with Grace Maher. Kayla Morrison playing as a permanent centre forward next to Kennedy White. Maher looking for one of them with that ball in, and Asen comes across and slices it away for a corner kick.
Well, it's danger times. Sydney FC really need to be on high alert. They need to command their areas on this corner.
It's never really over for Victory. They famously scored 3 times in stoppage time against the Central Coast Mariners earlier in the season to come from 3-0 down to get a 3-all draw. Can they dig into that belief again under this corner here? Morrison up, over the head of Bunge, flicked back on, handball shouts, referee waves them away. Bunge hard against the line. And as the ball finds its way out, it is only a goal kick. Was there an indiscriminate handball during that phase of play?
Well, there didn't seem to be too much of a protest for a handball.
There
it was.
The left hand of Willa Pearson. Well, the moment has passed. No VAR in the home and away season of the Ninja A-League. In fact, the competition has never had VAR over the course of its history. So the on-field call, that's what you got to trust. White's header, O'Grady. Looks like she's going to play the full 90 today. Goes to ground here, though. Talon Henniker. Oh, Levin lost where the ball went. And she's still going to steal a march after a ricochet. Valletta waiting. And the ball never arrived. Grace Maher able to clear. Can Victory slingshot down the other end? Sakalis finds Janchevski. Blocked once by Chimeth. Janchevski gets another chance. Furphy can't trap the ball. Sydney get numbers back in defence. Furphy over the head of Hins. Chimeth still there to mark Janchevski, who twists it back in. And the header from White slides out for a corner. It took a deflection.
They were agonisingly close again, Melbourne Victory. They had the numerical advantage on the counter-attack, but they overhit the cross.
Paramount Plus player index, Riley Tanner's top. An equaliser or a goal at the other end could change all that. It'll be revisited in the post-game. The Paramount Plus player index. Here's Janchevski's corner. In swinger. And a good defensive header by Chimeth. Grace Maher. Second time ball. Brought down by Pearson. And cleared away. Claudia Valletta able to drive it up to Taylor Ray. Ray puts it back into the box. Asen outpoints Morrison. Now Valletta over to Talon Henniker. A loose touch, but Lemon will capitalise. Good play by Holman. Gets it back to Lemon. And now the runners break. Riley Tanner. Does she go for goal or the corner? Tanner happy to hold it up. Lemon and Tanner. And now Shea Holman, Sydney FC, playing keepings off. Taylor Ray's had enough of that. Looking for Furphy, resumes her duel with Fenton. We're into the last minute of the 90. Grace Maher over to Claudia Bunge. White. Janchevski dispossessed. Well played Pearson. Now Hawkesby. Scott Valletta, is she onside? She's not. Flag up.
It was a close call. Valletta just offside. Intelligent play from Mackenzie Hawkesby.
Sakalis in on Hawkesby. We tick into 3 additional minutes. Not long for Victory here, but even the difference between a draw and a defeat could prove crucial in the battle for the top 6. Morrison plays the through ball. Here's Ella O'Grady, saved by Hens.
Well, O'Grady gets a good amount of power. She's threaded through. A wonderful pass through. But Heather Hinds, good positioning. Safe hands as usual.
Time the enemy here for victory. Ma. Fenton comes across. Sakalis with the throw in. Lowe scored victory's goal. Hawkesby clears. Ma to Taylor Ray. Victory piling numbers forward. Janchevski's got a chase here. She gets to the ball, hooks it back. O'Grady. Was she interfered with? The referee sees nothing untoward.
The victory bench all out of their seats.
And now on the left again, Janchevski claiming a corner, and it is. Taylor Ray going up. I think they're only going to leave Grace Ma back. In fact, Ma might be coming up as well. There's only so much that can change from the sideline now. Deep in stoppage. Here's the corner. Header from Bunge. Cleared away. Rachel Lowe. It's going to dip too late. It's out for a goal kick. And by the time that goal kick is taken, victory will have just 1 minute on the clock.
Well, Heather Hinds will be in no hurry here.
Winning perhaps out of the equation now for victory, but a draw can still be significant. Valletta off her head. Taylor Ray, no one playing ball kid, so she goes and retrieves it herself. Morrison just trying to get it forward by any means necessary, but it's out for a Sydney throw, and they will slow things down here. Kirsty Fenton's going to take her time. Isabella Mawson blows the whistle and says, take the throw in. Fenton onto the head of Tanner. Her 2 goals the difference. Ma backtracking. Valletta just going to make it awkward here. Newbon. A clean strike up the middle. Chimeth rising to the header. Morrison bumps Talon Henniker off the ball. Asen with a solid header. Stoppage time expires. Sydney FC have won the Big Blue, and it's going to have a big say on the Ninja A-League finals race. They jump off the foot of the table and playing for pride, playing to avoid the wooden spoon. They have come up with a massive result today. Riley Tanner with both the goals, and a come-from-behind win for James Slaveski, the interim coach, over the master Jeff Hopkins. And at least until tomorrow, Newcastle Jets and Perth Glory can breathe a sigh of relief, because this razor-thin race to the top 6 stays alive for 24 more hours for those 2 teams, as Melbourne Victory's own place in the finals is dragged into severe jeopardy. Full time at Leichhardt Oval, Sydney FC 2, Melbourne Victory 1.
Well, there you have it. Full time in Sydney, and the home side get the win. Victory, they will have to wait another week to seal their finals fate. An upset today caused by the Sky Blues in the Big Blue. Grace Gill and Ash Sykes, thank you for joining me. Let's break down what we saw over the last 90 minutes. We'll get through the highlights shortly, but off the top, ooh, Grace Gill, what did you make of that?
What a massive effort from Sydney FC. Really valiant. They dug deep in a way that they absolutely need to do. So much pride in that performance, and what a Big Blue that was.
Oh, it was massive. You know, it lived up to the hype, and